Thanks for taking the time to watch this solution. Just a quick note that if you ever need some one-on-one assistance, I do meet with students virtually using Google Meet. If you're interested in a study session to get ready for an exam, a quiz, or finish a homework assignment, feel free to reach out. The best way to do so would be at this email address right here. Shoot me an email. We could set something up. And now we can begin with the solution to the following problem. You would like to probably pause the video and just reread it before listening on. And then afterwards, we're going to draw a picture to represent this scenario. So we have used three different colors to represent the three different legs of this journey. During the first leg, the driver is going 100 kilometers per hour and travels 100 kilometers. During the second part of the trip, she's driving 40 kilometers per hour at a distance of 40 kilometers. And then for the third part of the journey, we are trying to figure out her speed. And as of now, we are not going to know the distance. But in fact, let's talk about that distance for the third leg of the journey. We know that the total distance is 300 kilometers, and then we know that the first leg is 100 and the second is 40 kilometers. So all we need to do is subtract 300 by 100 and by 40, and that's going to give us the final distance for that final leg of her journey. So if we do that, we'll have 300 minus 140. That's going to be 160 kilometers. What we need to figure out, though, is her speed. That's what we're looking for. It's v3. We know that her speed, v3, would be the distance that she's traveling divided by the time at which she is traveling that distance. Now, we already have d3. We don't know that third amount of time that it takes for that part of the journey. We do know that she's leaving at 8 o'clock in the morning and that she needs to arrive for the interview by 11:15. Now, we have already labeled that the total amount of time for that journey is 3.25 hours. So keep that in mind. That's her total time. But why don't we return to the first leg of the journey and figure out how much time it took her for that part of the drive. Now, we know that speed, v, is equal to a distance divided by a time. And we want to solve that equation for time. And there's a neat little algebraic trick you can do. You can take the quantity on the left and the quantity in the denominator on the right and swap them. It's a neat little trick to help you solve for time. So if we swap those two quantities, we would have that her time for the first part of her journey is equal to that distance divided by her speed. So now all we need to do is plug those values in. Now the values here are relatively straightforward. We have 100 kilometers divided by 100 kilometers per hour. So of course, if we divide those, we're going to get exactly 1 hour. So the time for part one of the journey is 1 hour. Now, if we do something similar for the second part of her journey and we calculate T2, we would just take D2, which is 40 kilometers, and divide that by V2, which is 40 kilometers per hour, and that's going to also be 1 hour. Now, remember, the total amount of time for her trip to the interview was the 3.25 hours. Well, she's already traveled 1 hour and then another hour, so to get the final amount of time for that third leg of her journey, we just subtract. We just subtract 3.25 hours minus 1 hour minus 1 hour. That's going to give us the time of 1.25 hours. And that's perfect, because now we have the distance during the third leg of the journey as well as the time. So we can come down here and we can plug in those values. Let's go ahead and do that. And when we compute that, we will see that her speed is going to be 128, and we divided kilometers by hours, so we have kilometers per hour. This is the correct answer to the question. So in order to solve a question like this, you definitely want to make sure that you draw a good picture. In this case, there were 3 legs of the journey. You want to make sure you draw them out. Using different colors can help, but certainly labels are key. So using subscripts 1 for part 1 and 2 for part 2, and so on.